Hello friends, welcome back to my channel Naruto Storm. So friends, please subscribe our channel and support us. So friends, today you are watching the third episode of the series What if Naruto and Shikamaru recruited in the Seven Swordsmen. So now my friend Alexander will tell you the story.
Kisame cursed, resentful at his failure to recognize the warning signs that the settlement was a trap. First of all, there were no gate guards and the gates were wide open. God forbid, that was a shinobi village. There are gate guards in every ninja village, who are typically chunin in level. And secondly, nobody could be seen. This was only true for Kiri. In contrast, the entrances to the other villages, including Konoha, led into busy streets that were teeming with people. He and his crew had to fight alien shinobi since he failed to notice these clear warnings. Kisame closed his eyes, attempting to focus his chakra into his ears. Enhancing his already powerful sensory capabilities and heightened senses, Kisami's ears picked up the rough power levels of the enemy shinobi, and barked out orders in response. I'll take the two taller ones. You guys take the other three in a separate area. Be careful, they've had time to lay traps. Immediately, katana in hand, Kisame blocked a staff strike by the first of his targets, swinging his foot around to try and sweep the legs of his second enemy. His eyes saw his team darting off to confront the three other enemies. Seeing one of Kirigakir's top Anbu, Orca, following his genin, a look of confidence brandished itself on Kisami's face for a short moment. The blank-masked shinobi used this as a window of opportunity, launching a volley of attacks at the former wielder of Samahata. Earth Style, Earth Dragon, Earth Style, Flying Stones. Sharp rocks flew across the battlefield, aimed at Kisame. The attack forced Kisame to body flicker away from the stones, right into the range of the first shinobi's attack. I've got you now, the first shinobi said, as his huge rock dragon materialized out of his earth chakra as well as the soil and earth scattered all over the battlefield. The dragon leapt, attempting to bite the swordsman with his teeth, but Kisame quickly twisted his wrist, his wind-infused sword slicing the shards of rock forming the teeth into shreds. After all, Kisame knew 4 out of the 5 basic elements, and had mastered 3 of them, water, wind, and earth. You've got to try harder than that. Kisame taunted, his katana drawn in front of him. His laid-back stance mocked the shinobi, enticing them into attacking Kisame in a full-on taijutsu assault. The two masked shinobi lunged, their hands already in hand seals. One of them had solidified their arm into rock, the other still weaving his seals. Suddenly, Kisame disappeared. The enemy ninja cursed, as Kisame reappeared behind them, katana drawn. Kisame raised his blade, ready to decapitate his enemies, but his target's quick thinking saved them. Both ninja ducked under the katana strike, but Kisame rotated the sword into a straight-down slash. Earth Style. Dark Swamp. The enemies quickly created mud using the ground below them, Kisami's slash barely grazing the first enemy's arm. Shoot. Mole, handle them. The first enemy ordered, slowly recovering from his attack. Understood, Snake. Mole replied, forming hand seals at a quick pace. This is getting boring, Kisame stated, making it clear that he wasn't trying at all. Heart, spine, lungs, kidney, larynx, jugular vein, collarbone, and liver. Which point do I hit first? Earth Style. Earthquake Slam. Mole announced, his arms slammed onto the ground. Cracks began forming across the battlefield, towers of rock slowly emerging from the ground to impale Kisame as well as create a more favorable battlefield for the earth release using ninja. Lungs it is, Kisame said, expelling huge amounts of fog into the clear battlefield, weakening the sight of his enemies. Hidden Mist Jutsu. Earth Style. Iron Skin. Mole said, encasing his body with earth chakra, nullifying Kisami's quick stab to the heart. The Anbu-level shinobi followed up with a chakra-enhanced punch, Kisame quickly parrying with his sword. The two active shinobi began a fierce taijutsu exchange, punches and kicks being delivered as both ninja battled it out. Sparks began to fly, until finally, another ninjutsu shook the battlefield. Earth Style. Doom Quake. Snake roared, his palm making contact with the uneven surface. Shards of stone were sent flying by the impact, piercing through the air towards Kisame. This jutsu was an enhanced version of the Earthquake Slam. Forced to dodge, Kisame weaved his way around the stone shards and Mole's taijutsu, until finally, a kick grazed his cheek. Not bad, Kisame said, but his tiny injury recovered in a second, incomparable to the high amounts of damage he had inflicted upon his opponent. A pair of hands emerged from the ground, Kisame quickly jumping up to avoid the headhunter jutsu. Mid-air, Kisame was met with another flurry of punches and kicks enhanced with Earth Chakra, which he blocked with both his arms and his katana. The skilled Kirigakure Jonin used his blade to attempt and cut off Snake's hands, but his enemy had already retreated back into the soil below. Snake reappeared behind Kisame, his staff ready to strike. Encased in a layer of stone, the staff came down on Kisame's head, meeting with Kisame's right arm. The staff snapped in half as Snake gritted his teeth in annoyance at his opponent's strength. 4 sharks made of water chakra rained down on the battlefield, no doubt Kisame's first usage of proper, offensive ninjutsu. Water style. 4 shark shower. Kisame grinned, sadism proudly displaying itself on the face of the shark-like man. The 4 sharks soared in the sky, gnashing their teeth at the enemies. 2 of the sharks rushed at Mole, the others targeting Snake. Mole and Snake attempted to dodge Kisame's sharks, to no avail. Leaping left to avoid the 2 sharks Kisame sent at him, Mole grinned, the sharks hitting the floor and turning into water. What he didn't realize was that the sharks had already reformed, and that cost him. The newly reformed sharks rose from the ground, sending Mole off balance. Kisame used this as a window of opportunity, running towards Mole at a high speed with his katana drawn. Seeing his comrade about to get skewered, Snake rushed over, his hands morphing into hand seals at his fastest rate. Earth style. Mud wall. Snake roared, his hands hitting the ground hard. Blood was scattered the ed all over his fingers, the sheer power he had pumped into the slam hurting his fingers. Earth rose all around him and Mole, forming a defensive dome. The water sharks hit the dome and the water scattered, but the sheer power of Kisame's sword broke the dome by itself. Water style. Water shark bomb. Kisame announced, before thrusting his arm at Snake and Mole. Damn it. Snake cursed, none of the jutsu in his arsenal able to counter the incoming water shark. The shark made of water loomed over the 2 earth release users, its sharp teeth threatening to penetrate their skulls. The sheer speed of the shark was enough to shock both enemies, but before the shark could gobble up and damage Snake and Mole, Snake managed to protect himself. Earth style. Mud wall. Snake hollered in desperation, infusing what was left of his chakra into the defensive wall. It was now up to Mole to take out Kisame, Snake's chakra too depleted to do anything to impact the battle. The shark smashed through the mud wall with no difficulty, shocking both the Hitai 8-less shinobi. However, the mud wall stalled enough for Mole to launch another jutsu. Wind style. Great breakthrough, Mole yelled, blowing the water away from him. Finally, you guys did something intelligent, Kisame complimented. Too bad I'll have to kill you. I'm done playing with my prey, it's time to eat. Kisame leapt at his targets, katana drawn. His enemies stood no chance from the start. Blades whirring, Kisame sliced and diced, cutting up any attacks his enemies sent at him. Kisame didn't need to infuse his blade with chakra in order to destroy his enemies. Kisame's sheer power was enough to overpower them. Snake grunted, as death awaited him. He was about to be severed into pieces by one of Kirigakure's finest shinobi, Hoshigaki Kisame. Awaiting his death, Snake closed his eyes. Kisame swiftly decapitated Mole, the clean cut leaving little to no blood behind. Mole died a quick and painless death. Kisame turned his eyes to Snake, but the white-masked Anbu was gone. Kisame touched the ground, covered in mud. Too easy. Chasing him would be a waste of time. Besides, the last guy doesn't have any chakra left anyways, so he isn't a threat to us, Kisame thought to himself, as he sprinted off to observe as well as assist his genin. Snake panted, having escaped at the last possible moment with a combination of the hidden Mole jutsu and earth style, dark swamp. The final shreds of energy in him were exhausted in his escape against his enemy. He desperately hoped that his enemy wouldn't come after him, because if Kisame did, he couldn't escape without backup. The strongest of his 5-man party, him and Mole, were wrecked by an opponent who wasn't even trying, and he was sure that the 3 weaker nin would lose, seeing how hardly he and Mole had lost. Regardless of the consequences, he still had to inform his cage of the failure to guard the victory point and to destroy any intruders. But, he knew one thing, deep in his heart. Kage-sama wouldn't like these results, not a single bit. Snake fell unconscious, finally succumbing to his chakra exhaustion. He would beat Kisame one day, and avenge his fallen brother, one day. Naruto grunted as he blocked a kick to the chest from his opponent, one of the weaker enemies. He had been separated from his teammates by the 3 enemies, causing each of them to fight in a one-on-one battle. It was impossible to tell what village they were from, but he knew that they were skilled. After all, they were overpowering him. Kisame had estimated that he was high Chunin level at best, at worst high Genin level. After all, If you trained for 3 months under one of the strongest shinobi alive, it was hard for you to be that weak. Samahada helped a lot, too. The powerful blade which could absorb chakra as well as shave instead of slice combined with Naruto's unnaturally large chakra reserves enhanced his ability to perform jutsu that required more chakra, and Naruto planned to take advantage of that fact. Water style. Water bomb jutsu. Naruto roared, as he churned water chakra in his stomach. A huge blast of water drenched his enemy in water, pushing his enemy back as well as dealing a small amount of damage. Earth style. Tujinbo. His enemy called out the name of his jutsu, his hands impacting the terrain that they were fighting on. Sharp columns of rock protruded from the ground, allowing Naruto's enemy, the ninja known as Earthworm, to gain an advantage. This also enabled the enemy shinobi to attack Naruto from his blind spots, maximizing the efficiency. Naruto quickly dodged the pillars of earth, using Samahada to slice up the columns that came to close. At one point, one column arose from right under Naruto, eliciting a response from the blonde. Naruto whirled around, chopping the pillar into bits using a wind-infused slash. Work with Kisame had perfected his slash-down-slash combo, which meant that he could now use efficient, orthodox slashes. Wind style. Vacuum blast. Naruto quickly spun around, using his incredibly sharp wind chakra to rebound across the battlefield, slicing up whatever was in his way. Naruto knew that this was one of his most powerful ninjutsu, and had to use it conservatively, so that he would not be predictable. Predictability was the complete opposite of his fighting style, which centered around launching unexpected but devastating strikes. Shoot. Earthworm swore, quickly spinning and dodging Naruto's wind blasts. The wind had wrecked his earth columns, minimizing the amount of space he had to hide, and expanding Naruto's field of vision. The earth around Earthworm weakened, hiding the shinobi from Naruto's eyes. Naruto's pupils darted across the battlefield in search of his opponent. Earthworm wasn't above, in front, behind, right, nor left to him. That meant that he was below him. Naruto jumped up, avoiding a pair of outstretched hands. Earthworm's arms pulled thin air into the ground, returning to his body empty-handed. Naruto moved back, avoiding the arms of Earthworm, until another pair of arms contacted his body. There he was, Earthworm, holding a kunai to Naruto's throat. Naruto inwardly swore, acknowledging that he had created clones, most likely made of earth. Immediately, Naruto's chin moved down to cover his windpipe, before spinning around to knee Earthworm in the nuts. The enemy shinobi staggered backwards, recovering from the hit to the sensitive part of his body, before launching into another flurry of hand seals, earth-style, stone column spears. Sharp rocks moved up from the ground to pierce Naruto's vitals, while Earthworm's clone leapt high in the air to kick Naruto's head. Instantaneously, Naruto substituted himself with the Earth clone, dispelling it. The substitution jutsu was the only jutsu he had learned from the Konoha Academy, along with the transformation jutsu and his creation, the sexy jutsu. Damn it, Earthworm said, before grabbing his dual kunai and returning to a bukajutsu battle. Samahada's sheer power decimated Earthworm's kunai, shaving it to shreds within 3 hits. Combined with Naruto's insane wind affinity, cutting through even the first Rashomon would be possible with some difficulty. Wind style. Great breakthrough. Naruto yelled out of the blue, a gust of wind blowing his enemy away. Unfortunately, Earthworm had already rooted himself to the ground using Earth Chakra. That left him open to an attack, which Naruto didn't deliver, instead body flickering behind him. Earthworm quickly spun around, countering the attack with another kunai, which instantly splintered into bits. One of the metal shards embedded itself into Earthworm's skin, causing the shinobi to cry out in pain. Stone Clone Jutsu. 5 additional stone clones emerged from the ground, the same kind as the ones he used in the hidden mole jutsu combination. 2 of the clones began engaging Naruto in vicious taijutsu, attempting to cause Naruto to gain tunnel vision. Naruto winced as one of the clones finally landed a hit. It was clear that his opponent was superior, and he would only stand a chance if he went 100%. Slowly, Naruto began increasing his effort, which in turn caused a similar response from his enemy. A pair of arms once again emerged from the ground, the clones surrounding Naruto from all directions. Naruto was forced to jump, entering the field of attack from the clone attacking from above. The real Earthworm finally appeared out of the dirt, uppercutting Naruto in the chin. A bruise formed on Naruto's chin, which quickly recovered thanks to both Naruto's Uzumaki healing factor as well as the 9 tails. The next attack rained down on him, a downwards kick from the Earth clone above. What would have been a knockout or killing blow was just a normal attack for Naruto. Earthworm continuously pelted Naruto with uppercuts as well as downward strikes from his clones, the barrage of deadly attacks slowly damaging the Kiri youth. Ugh! Naruto grunted, as he finally thought of a way to get out of this trap. He still hadn't learned the body flicker from Kisame, but out of his jutsu arsenal, he had a suitable jutsu for this escape. Water style, water prison jutsu. A spherical veil of water protected Naruto from the next attacks, causing Earthworm and his clones to slowly retreat away from the Kirigakure swordsman. Naruto landed flawlessly, the effects of the taijutsu still present on him. Bruises from the repetitive up and down pendulum combo littered Naruto's body. Naruto style. Elemental clone jutsu. Naruto yelled out, leaving Earthworm clueless. What even is that? Earthworm wondered, but it was too late. Naruto's shadow, water, and wind clones littered the battlefield, a capability granted by his monstrous chakra reserves. In the hands of each clone was a replica of Samahata, weaker than the original, but strong nonetheless. Earthworm's clones began a furious barrage of attacks on the clones, dispelling the shadow clones and slowly destroying the water clones. However, Naruto's creation, the wind clone jutsu, created extremely durable wind clones which, unlike the shadow clone, were not one-hit K. The masked shinobi gritted his teeth, having to expend his chakra to knock out these pesky clones. They weren't even the real thing. He evaded an attack from a shadow clone, before turning around to be met by a strike from a water clone. He easily sidestepped, hitting the wind clone, only for the wind clone to regenerate. "I've got you now," Naruto hollered, before gripping the real Samahata. Naruto swung his blade in a slash, before returning a backward slash. However, his opponent had body flickered away, leaving an earth clone to take the strike. The power of the attack instantly dispelled the earth clone. Suddenly, a thought hit Earthworm's mind, like a veil had been lifted. A revelation came tumbling down on him like a boulder rolling down a mountain during a landslide. Wind's weakness was fire. Fire style. Phoenix Flower Jutsu. Earthworm screamed, using the only fire ninjutsu he had at his disposal. Naruto cursed, before attempting to extinguish the flames with a water release ninjutsu, but it was too late. The flames made contact with the wind clones, gaining traction and power. The weak flames doubled in size after they hit all of the wind clones, targeting Naruto. Water style. Water bomb jutsu. Naruto roared, water spewing out of his mouth. The powerful water release attack flushed out the flames failing to hit their target. Despite Naruto's low amount of ninjutsu, his creativity more than made up for it. Earthworm put up a mud wall to defend from the water ninjutsu, the type advantage helping a lot. The shinobi had already dispelled most of the clones, leaving only 3 standing alongside Naruto. Earth style, stone column spears. Stone pillars arose, attempting to impale Naruto once again. One of his water clones took the hit for him, the earth and soil absorbing the water at a surprisingly fast rate. Earthworm formed another clone out of his soon exhausted chakra reserves, and the duo began speedily weaving through hand seals. Fire style. Phoenix Flower Jutsu. Wind style. Great breakthrough. The 2 clones yelled out their ninjutsu in unison, Earthworm using the only ninjutsu of other elements that he knew. The combination of the missile-like fireballs and the wind enhanced the attack, the size of each fireball increasing. Naruto sidestepped one fireball, before blocking another. A small part of his sleeve crumbled, burned by the fireball that he had blocked. The fireballs came like rain, Naruto taking the hit for some, blocking with Samahata for others, and dodging some. The blonde flinched, a fireball barely missing his face. Wind style. Air bullets. Naruto sent concentrated wind chakra bullets towards Earthworm, drilling through the air towards Earthworm. The desperate enemy quickly put up a mud wall, before weaving another sequence of hand seals. However, the bullets hit Earthworm's clone, one hit dispelling it. Earth style. Stone golem jutsu. Earthworm launched his last resort jutsu, forming a powerful servant out of stone alone. The towering giant loomed over Naruto, the Kenjutsu master infusing his blade with wind and slashing at the giant. Unlike Earthworm's other attacks, the giant was not obliterated. Instead, only a crack appeared on his huge torso. Naruto gritted his teeth in frustration, tiredness slowly creeping into his body. He had fought for a long time, and had thought that Earthworm would have been tired out, but the low Jonin level ninja kept holding out. Distressed, Naruto turned to one of his last resorts. The bandages concealing Samahata's true form flew open, the jagged blade scaring Earthworm. "Here goes nothing," Naruto muttered, dispelling his clones. Naruto raised Samahata above his head, as the sword began glowing in a dark orange light. The two began fusing, gills growing on Naruto's neck. The blonde skin slowly turned gray, scales growing throughout his body. Sharp claws and teeth emerged, as Naruto's appearance shifted to be that of a deep-sea predator. And the whiskers remained on his face, no doubt the result of Naruto hosting the 9 tails. "Let's go!" Naruto roared, his voice significantly deepened. The blonde's voice echoed across the battlefield, radiating a sense of power and instilling fear into his enemies. This was Naruto's first try at combining with Samahada, having heard the logic behind it with Kisame, but he didn't think it would work at first. Power coursed through Naruto's body, as he weaved unfamiliar hand seals. It was like Samahada was teaching him a ninjutsu. An unfamiliar thought popped into his brain. It was the name of the jutsu. Water-style bullet. Shark! Naruto roared, sending a huge, concentrated bullet of water at the golem. The golem failed to dodge, the blast of water obliterating the stone servant. Earthworm desperately hoped for salvation, but to no avail. Naruto leapt at Earthworm, claws drawn. He would protect his comrades. The attack came. Naruto's claws teared Earthworm apart, obliterating his enemy. He had done this before, killing, on past missions, but this time, it felt different. Naruto breathed, before separating again with his blade. That was exhilarating. Naruto thought, tiredness spreading throughout his body. Before he could find his teammates, Naruto fell unconscious, tired from all the fighting. An onlooker grinned, staring at Naruto. The Uzumaki had won, against all odds. He supposed he had something to do with it, using a powerful jutsu from the Scroll of Seals, which he had glimpsed when Ao took the Scroll of Seals to copy, to give Naruto the thoughts that taught him the water-style bullet. Shark. Still, Naruto had done it, and he had done it well. Kisame and Mei would be pleased at his improvement, very pleased indeed. Shikamaru grimaced, having to actually try against his opponent. The Nara was way too lazy to put in effort, but at a battle, going less than 100% could cost him his life. Thoughts raced through his head, attempting to formulate a strategy against his enemy. Too bad, kid. Shikamaru's target, Gopher, taunted, not in a proper fighting stance. The arrogant shinobi charged at Shikamaru, his double-edged sword drawn. Shikamaru used Shibuki to block the downward slash, the blast sword exploding on Gopher's sword. The smoke from the explosion blurred Gopher's vision, as Shikamaru speedily weaved the rat seal. Shikamaru's shadow zoomed towards Gopher's legs, the somewhat unintelligent enemy jumping up to avoid the shadow. As Gopher landed on the ground, Shikamaru's shadow continued chasing him around the battlefield, forcing Gopher to focus on the shadow alone. Gopher weaved through the battlegrounds, his eyes trained on Shikamaru's shadow. It wasn't until the shadow disappeared that he noticed what was happening. Shikamaru let a tiny smile form on his face, as a kunai whizzed through the air, aimed at Gopher. The Nara's guess had been correct, as Gopher lost his focus on Shikamaru's shadow to dodge the kunai. What the masked shinobi didn't notice was the explosive tag strapped onto the kunai hilt, which detonated as Shikamaru snapped his fingers. Shoot! Gopher swore, as he somersaulted into the air, his body turning like a wheel to both dodge and land properly. Gopher's eyes darted around the battlefield, the smoke obscuring his vision. All of a sudden, ash flew towards him out of nowhere, blinding him. Gopher looked to the ground, expecting Shikamaru's shadow to try and trap him, but it never came. Instead, Shikamaru ignited the ash surrounding Gopher, using the flint he had placed in his tooth prior to set the chakra gunpowder on fire. Fire style, burning ash. Gopher grunted, attempting to escape the flames. Channeling fire-natured chakra to his feet, Gopher used the fire chakra as a means of escape, utilizing the embers to propel himself into the air. Mid-air, the enemy shinobi sneered, the flames below failing to burn him. Wind style. Great breakthrough. Shikamaru coolly replied, sending a gust of wind at Gopher's feet. The wind-style ninjutsu had been one of the few ninjutsu that all 7 new swordsmen had been taught, along with the water prison, water clone, water bomb, water wall, and raging waves. Gopher's face looked in confusion at Shikamaru's actions. Wind was weak to fire. Shikamaru's strange usage of wind ninjutsu surprised Gopher, a look of astonishment appearing on Gopher's face. Just as the wind was about to hit Gopher's fire chakra keeping him afloat, Gopher weaved hand seals to take advantage of his predicament. Fire style, giant flame bombs. A huge blast of flame erupted from Gopher's lungs, increasing in speed and size as it hit the wind. Shikamaru smiled faintly, before launching into hand seals. His hands weaved tiger, ox, back to tiger, and rat. Water came out of his mouth, extinguishing the scorching flames, but most importantly, the last seal in the sequence was Rat. Shadow possession complete. Shikamaru announced, having used the shadow the fire blast caused to extend his range. Shibuki stood in his hand, excited to be used. Gopher winced, unable to move. His body acted like a puppet for Shikamaru. He was forced to put his hand on his head, imitating Shikamaru's motions. "This is way too troublesome," Shikamaru remarked. "Shibuki, let's finish this here and now." Shadow imitation jutsu. Gopher's face shifted into one of fear, afraid of what Shikamaru would do. Shikamaru could now move his limbs without impacting Gopher's body, allowing him to step towards his enemy. Shikamaru grabbed Shibuki and swung it at Gopher's head, aiming for a quick and swift decapitation. However, at that very moment, Gopher's limbs broke free. Shikamaru cursed as he jumped back, avoiding a slash from Gopher's special sword. Gopher's kenjutsu wasn't sloppy at all. Need dictated Shikamaru's effort level, and now, in this scenario, especially when his opponent could break free of a weaker version of the shadow possession jutsu, Shikamaru needed to try his best. Gopher swung his sword at Shikamaru, the Konoha defector blocking his swing with Shibuki. Gopher blocked a slash from Shikamaru, his blade taking an explosion, before returning his own jab. Gopher's opponent rotated his blade so that the flat edge contacted the blade, tearing off some explosive paper from the Seven Sword of the Mist. Shikamaru maneuvered around the battlefield, forcing his enemy to follow him in order to attack. Shibuki's wielder knew that he had to conserve his chakra and couldn't afford to use many more ninjutsu. His chakra reserves the second lowest in the new Seven Swordsmen, the only one lower being Renmara. However, the purple head made up for that by drawing natural lightning from his environment and his sword, and Shikamaru had neither of those capabilities. Plus, Shikamaru couldn't use the shadow possession again and risk it failing, like it did in his enemy's near-death situation. Gopher's foot struck the tore-off paper from Shibuki's endless reel of explosive tags, and an explosion rocked his right ankle. Flinching, the Hitai 8-less shinobi swiftly entered a sequence of hand seals, funneling the fire chakra he had been molding in his lungs out through his mouth. Fire style, Great Flame Flower. Fireballs rocked the battlefield like rain, burning any trees or buildings in its way. Shikamaru weaved his way around most of the fireballs, blocking any that he couldn't dodge with Shibuki. Shikamaru tore off many pieces of explosive paper from Shibuki, throwing it in the air to emulate Gopher's attack. Hidden Mole Jutsu. Gopher muttered, before sinking into the ground. The skilled fire release user disappeared into the earth below, his attack having cleared out the battlefield of any houses and decorations. Shikamaru tiredly sighed, before placing an explosive tag face down on the soles of his feet, expecting Gopher to pull him underground. A few moments later, Shikamaru's prediction was proven correct, Gopher's arms emerging from the soil below. Shikamaru weaved a half-ram seal, detonating the tag. The explosion burned Gopher's hands, sending Shikamaru flying into the air above. "Damn it!" Gopher cussed, his pride and ego slowly crumbling away. Shikamaru channeled chakra to his feet and by extension, his sandals, before swiftly landing atop Gopher's rising head. Shikamaru's stomp pushed Gopher back into the soil below. A loud curse word could be heard, as Gopher returned to above ground. Stone Clone Jutsu. Gopher roared in anger, his emotions beginning to take over. 5 clones poofed into existence, each of them, beginning to form the hand seals for the same jutsu. Gopher began his own series of hand seals, different than that of his clones. All of the clones as well as Gopher ended their hand seal chain, all of them expelling their jutsu in unison. Fire style. Phoenix Flower Jutsu. Fire style, Great Flame Flower. The mouths of Gopher and his clones hurled fireballs at Shikamaru from all directions, including above, forcing Shikamaru to expend more of his chakra in a desperate defense. Water style. Water Wall. Shikamaru said, using his chakra to form 5 powerful walls all around him, blocking out the fireballs. Another pair of arms tried to pull him down and under, but a swift slash with Shibuki dealt with it. The volley of fireballs continued, Shikamaru using his chakra to sustain the water walls for as long as possible. Finally, Shikamaru's chakra reserves failed him, the walls dissolving back into liquid form from lack of chakra. "I've got you now," Gopher yelled, his voice full of arrogance. Gopher lunged at his enemy, sword drawn. He brought his double-edged sword down, aiming to crack Shikamaru's skull. Shikamaru grunted, holding Shibuki above his head with all of his remaining strength. He took the hits from Gopher's clones, attempting to stay alive for as long as possible. His head was more important than his body. Shikamaru's body slowly weakened, the strength behind Gopher's attack increasing. Shikamaru went down to one knee, a look of desperation on his face. He was about to die. Oh, how he would miss the clouds, the game of shogi, and sleeping. He would miss his newly made friends, especially Naruto. He supposed that death was eternal sleep, but still. It's time for you to meet your end, kid. You were too weak. You can't protect anyone, or anything, with how powerless you are. Gopher sneered. He knew that this would be his final boast to his weakened enemy, and it would. Weak. Powerless. Can't protect anyone. These words burned through Shikamaru's mind, the near-death ninja angered. He wouldn't die like this. A sudden surge of power through his body gave him the strength to keep pushing, for his friends. Shikamaru stood up, the force behind his return sending Gopher's sword back towards him. Gopher's double-edged sword carved the arrogant shinobi's face in half. Not giving his opponent time to recover, Shikamaru swung Shibuki at Gopher's head, detonating the explosive paper. Gopher's clones dispelled, the real body falling to the ground, lifeless. Gopher's body was a corpse now. Shikamaru smiled, having survived, before he fell to the ground, collapsing of exhaustion. The fight had taken a lot out of him. The clouds above Shikamaru danced, celebrating his victory. Best of all, finally, Shikamaru could take a break and sleep. You can't beat me. Haku's opponent hollered, bees buzzing around her. I'm the granddaughter of the first Tsuchikage, and you stand no chance. Haku didn't give any reply, throwing a hail of senbon at the bees surrounding Suzumaki. The sharp metal needles soared through the air, aimed straight at Suzumbaki's pets, but only a few needles managed to make contact. Nice try, weakling. Suzumbaki boasted, most of her bees surviving the hit. 1,000 stingers jutsu. Haku ducked behind one of the empty houses, poisonous needles flying out from the stingers of Suzumbaki's bees. The kunoichi grimaced as a stinger came close to her face, twirling out of the way in the nick of time. Water style, water clone. You've got to do better than that. Suzumbaki sneered at Haku's usage of a simple jutsu, before launching into another attack of her own. Her hand slammed onto the ground, calling out the name of her jutsu. Earth style, dark swamp. The nearby ground melted into mud, multiple houses submerged by the swamp made of chakra. Haku swiftly created ice out of her fingertips, freezing a slab of ice for her to stand on. Zabuza's former companion quickly weaved hand seals, performing another one of her Kekkei Genkei ninjutsu. Ice style, frozen field. Houses stopped sinking as the ground turned to ice, Suzumbaki's bees lifting her off the ground. The endless sound of buzzing rang in the ears of Haku, attempting to disturb her focus. Suzumbaki, however, had already grown accustomed to this sound. So, you're a Kekkei Genkei user too. This makes it more fun to kill you. Suzumbaki's voice shifted into one that made her sound deranged, sadism dripping from the corner of her mouth. Her bees flew towards Haku, stingers facing the ice release user. The speed of the bees slightly threw Haku off balance. Calming down, Haku reassured herself that this was her turf. The ice floor was one that she could manipulate and shift to fit her needs, which gave her an edge. However, Suzumbaki, protected by her swarm of bees, was keeping her distance, which was a disadvantage. Haku's cold expression shifted into one of anticipation, awaiting her opponent's next move. Ninja art. Honeybee jutsu. Suzumbaki roared, sending another wave of bees towards Haku. The bees moved in to sting Haku, attacking from all sides. What the bee controller did not anticipate was Haku having a technique that could defend on all sides. Ice style. Glacial dome. Haku whispered, her hands forming a dome of ice around her. The wind gradually grew cold, the bees kept outside the dome. However, one bee had made it into the near unbreakable defense. The speedster had made it in while Haku froze the water vapor around her, encased in a block of ice. Injured and about to freeze to death, the bee emitted a huge amount of sticky honey inside the dome, immobilizing Haku's feet. Haku complained, her feet stuck in place. Luckily, she had a second choice. Haku quickly released the dome before expelling powder snow from the palm of her right hand, barricading the bees on the other side of the snow. The bees were rendered unconscious by the sub-zero temperatures, releasing honey from their stingers. Suzumbaki howled in anger, a lot of her bees downed by the ice defense. She knew that she couldn't lose like this, and that Haku probably had more cards up her sleeve. Plus, Haku hadn't even used Nuabari yet. All of a sudden, Haku began sprinting across the ice field, running past the remnants of houses that had survived the fight. The strange maneuver caught Suzumbaki off guard, Haku moving in a strange pattern. The Kirigakure Kunoichi would run past House A towards House C, taking a detour around House D before moving in an S shape to get to House B, before arriving at House C and taking the straight route back to House A. When Suzumaki finally got the hang of Haku's running patterns, she leapt into the battlefield, ready to engage Haku. Her hands were tightly packed, in a sharp, stinger-like shape. Suzumaki moved towards House C to ambush Haku. Big mistake. Invisible wires littered the battlefield, laid during Haku's running. Haku smiled, Suzumaki tripping a wire. Immediately, the wires tangled the Kamiruzu, immobilizing her. "How shall I finish you?" Haku asked, having learned a lot of killing techniques from her old master, Zabuza, and her new master, Kushimaru. Suddenly, the wires snapped open, cut by one of Suzumbaki's bees. The dangerous insect user leapt at Haku, her bees in suit. Suzumbaki's hands made contact with Haku's elbow, the block not very effective. The sharp shape of Suzumbaki's hand increased the amount of damage dealt by the strike. Almost instantaneously, the Iwakunoichi's bees attacked also, stingers coated in poison. Haku let out a cry of pain from the taijutsu attack, before weaving hand seals. Suzumbaki's next attack came, hitting the ice wall that had materialized. The hardness and coldness of the ice caused Haku's opponent to yelp in agony, some of her bees losing their stingers from the failed attack. Ice style, crystal wall. "Oh, you'll pay for this." Suzumbaki growled, her anger evident from her facial expression. Her bruised fingers were still intact, showing her physical strength and endurance. Any normal ninja's fingers would have shattered from the impact, but she was different. She was the grandson of the famed first Tsuchikage, Ishikawa. She was stronger than the rest. Yet she wasn't acknowledged at all by her fellow Iwa ninja. Haku jumped back, her one-handed seals forming in her left hand while wielding Nuabari. Ice darts flew out from her mouth, aimed at both Suzumbaki and her bees. The darts froze the air around them, forming icicles that fell to the ground. Through speed combined with temperature, the icy darts froze many bees, their corpses falling to the ground like trash.
Suzumbaki put up her hand to block. Her muscles went limp, immobilized by the ice darts. The intense cold numbed Suzumbaki's forearm, forcing the Iwagakure Kunoichi to retreat backwards, into the remains of one of the houses in the area.
Haku leapt forward, her palm touching the ice-cold ground. Immediately, ice spikes plunged upwards from beneath the ground, impaling the furniture in the deserted house that Suzumbaki hid in. Ice style, shattering ice spears. Suzumbaki groaned, her skin scorched by the freezing frost. Through the sacrifice of some of her summons, also bees, she had barely survived the near insta-kill. Anger seeped through her blood vessels, burning with an intensity rivaling that of a volcano. She would be acknowledged by succeeding in this mission to guard the victory point. Haku felt the killing intent radiating from Suzumbaki's shaking body. Although nowhere near Zabuza or Kushimaru's level of intensity, Suzumbaki's was quite fierce. Even so, Haku could endure it, from her years with Zabuza and experiences assassinating strong shinobi. She had the upper hand. Suzumbaki was cold, and she wouldn't be able to last that much longer under this temperature. But Haku knew her limits, and knew that she wouldn't be able to last very long fighting at this level. She made a decision on her next move, and she leapt towards her enemy. Suzumbaki shuddered, her teeth vibrating at incredible temperature. Coating herself in her bee's honey did help a little bit, but the powerful ice release user was continuously firing temperature ninjutsu at her. It didn't help that she didn't know any fire release ninjutsu. Her teammate Gopher had an affinity for fire, and her other teammate Earthworm knew one, but she didn't. She put learning one on her mental bucket list, if she got back to Iwa alive. Her eyes focused on Haku, ready for another assault. But she would have to do this wisely. Suzumbaki made a choice, and she charged towards Haku. Haku swiftly engaged in Bukajutsu combat with her opponent, Nuabari pitted against one of Suzumbaki's kunai. The kunai knives were far weaker than her sword, but the kunai combined with the Iwa nin's repetitive bee attacks were slowly getting on Haku's nerves. The ice user weaved one-handed seals at an astonishing pace, taking the stings from her enemy's bees. She would deal with the poison later, when she had time. Time was of the essence. Ice-style secret jutsu. Crystal ice mirrors. Many ice mirrors materialized out of thin air, forming a dome around Suzumbaki. Suzumbaki attempted to send a bee out of the dome, to no avail. Senbon began flying at her from all directions, her opponent seeming to be in every mirror. She weaved seals and unleashed the bee honey jutsu, but she managed to miss every time. Haku was just too fast. Suzumbaki sighed, finally realizing that she had no choice to make. It was either she died from exhaustion or her opponent, or both of them died. Suzumaki chose the death of both. She mustered up as much chakra as possible, drawing from the deepest abyss of her chakra reserves. The beekeeper weaved hand seals, preparing her secret weapon. This jutsu was the ace up her sleeve, and wasn't intended to be used close range. If her opponent used their cursed hiden jutsu, she would do the same. Bees with explosive tags littered the mirror dome, flying in all direction. The cloud of bees clouded the vision of both beekeeper and target, until Suzumaki made the hand seal. The dome exploded, the strength of the explosion shattering most of the ice mirrors. Haku leapt out of a mirror, running as far away from the explosion as possible. She inhaled the smoke and ash, coughing up some of the unclean air. Checking the remnants of the dome, she found Suzumbaki's corpse, void of all life. Haku exhaled, upset that she had to take another life. Alas, that was the life of a shinobi, and she had chosen that path. There was no going back now. The kunoichi bowed to honor her opponent, who had put up a worthy fight against her. Awaiting her teammates and sensei, Haku leaned against one of the stone slabs that once were part of the walls of a house. Kisame and his 3 genin walked down the road towards Kusagakure, each of them silently reflecting on their performance in their respective battles. All 4 of them had been victorious, but each member of Team 12 had varying levels of success. In Kisame's case, he had won easily, while the same could not be said for Haku, who had only triumphed due to her opponent committing suicide. Shikamaru had won by a stroke of luck, while Naruto most likely would have had more trouble against the golem without that lucky thought, showing how much progress had to be made. The 4 shinobi trudged along the road, their swords strapped to their backs, each member's minds focused on what they needed to improve on. After all, there is never too little room for improvement. I need to enlarge my chakra reserves by a lot, Shikamaru thought, acknowledging his lack of chakra. I also need to think even further ahead, and I need to expand my jutsu arsenal. I should use strategy more, and formulate good strategies, though a few sessions with Shikamaru should do the trick. Naruto reviewed what he needed to improve on. I also need to know more ninjutsu, because I probably could have killed the guy that I fought, but not the golem. My raw taijutsu needs work. Haku thought, thinking of a few aspects that needed improvement in order for her to be successful. I also should invest in bigger chakra reserves and my ice style. After all, I'm the only ice release user left. Kisame grinned at his team's growth, having seen the corpses of the 3 opponents that his genin had to face. Albeit 2 of his students had been unconscious when he found them, he was confident that his students had overcame the odds and triumphed. Although, according to Haku, she would have lost if her opponent did not commit suicide in an attempt to take both of them out. Her opponent had overestimated Haku, thinking that she would have died, when Haku most likely would have ran out of chakra maintaining the mirrors instead. After all, keeping the crystal ice mirrors active took a lot out of the user. We're nearly at the border to the Land of Rain, Kisame informed his squadron, pointing at a station guarded by multiple samurai. Now, the question is, do we take the more dangerous path through the Land of Rain, in which we risk being intercepted by a Megakure shinobi, or do we cross the border to the Land of Fire and have a longer as well as more risky path? I say the Land of Rain path, Shikamaru suggested, voting for the first option. Risks were to be avoided at all costs, and he had gotten too accustomed to Kirigakure that returning to Konoha would be way too troublesome. Plus, his parents, Shikaku and Yoshino, had stressed that he had a choice. The Nara knew that his parents had accepted his decision with a grain of salt. I agree. Naruto voted, not wanting to risk returning to the hellhole of the place known as Konoha, where the villagers shunned the demon boy every chance they had, even abuse on his very birthday. That is fine with me, Haku stated, giving her opinion on the situation. From her vote, it was clear which path the group would be taking. The Land of Rain it is, Kisame announced to his genin, pointing at the checkpoint ahead. The experienced S-rank ninja's enhanced eyesight pinpointed the exact location of the samurai. However, I doubt the mercenary samurai would let random shinobi inside the country, so. The 5 samurai guarding the Land of Rain's border entrance point from the Land of Rivers. Unlike the Land of Rain's other neighbors, the Land of Rivers had a weak shinobi village. Plus, rumors had spread that a platoon of 10 masked shinobi massacred the entire village, some of them remaining to protect the checkpoint. Halt. One of them ordered the band of travelers attempting to pass the border, state your purpose. We are a band of traveling performers heading to Uteki village to deliver a performance, the tallest, cloaked man replied. His companions nodded in agreement, the 3 other cloaked performers preparing to pass the border gate. We shall proceed to the weapons check. The samurai told the performers, please take off your cloaks. The performers took off their cloaks, revealing 4 swords, one attached onto each of their backs. Under the transformation jutsu, Kirigakure's Team 12 smiled, each of them disguised as a different person. The 5 samurai drew their blades, ready to fight the 4 supposed actors. A word from Kisame calmed them down. Relax, these are just props. Kisame lied straight through his teeth. Fortunately, the skilled information protector had great experience lying, constantly having to use this skill to protect information. The jaws of the samurai dropped open at what Kisame did next, stunning them at the risk that he was taking. See? Kisame proved to the samurai that the swords were fake by stabbing himself in the finger with his katana, no blood trickling out of the pierced location. What the samurai didn't know, however, was that the wound had been prevented by the tailed beast's extraordinary healing factor, and that the sword was real. Very well, you may pass. The samurai opened the gate, letting the team consisting of Kirigakure ninja through into the land of rain. After the team of foreign shinobi established distance between themselves and the border guards, all 4 ninja dropped the transformation. They don't check for your chakra signature, which is why you don't need to suppress your chakra signature. Kisame taught his team. However, you guys eventually will have to learn how to suppress it, because you will go on assassination and infiltration missions some point in your ninja career. Naruto, Shikamaru, and Haku nodded, absorbing the useful information that their sensei had given them. After all of them wanted to improve their skills as a shinobi, and they all knew that what Kisame said was true. The humid temperature was no doubt a result of the constant pouring of rain in a megacure. The water vapor left over from when the rain ended remained in the air, carried throughout the country by the winds. The team continued their way across the land of rain for the rest of the day, the sun moving across the sky from east to west. Time flew like ravens, and before long, night dawned on them. So, are we setting up camp yet? Naruto asked his master, seeing the moon gaze down upon him. Yeah. Kisame agreed. You guys pitch the tent and go to bed. We need energy for tomorrow. I'll patrol. Alright. Naruto cheered, tired from the long walking. This is just troublesome. Shikamaru complained, reluctantly heading to help Naruto build the tent. Kisame had sealed the team necessities into a scroll, keeping everyone's belongings save in a storage scroll concealed in his belt. Being the only one on the team other than Shikamaru knowledgeable in Fuinjutsu, Kisame had taken up the duty of storing everyone's belongings in a scroll and protecting it, unlike the flimsiness of carrying a backpack around. Shikamaru unsealed the scroll that Kisame had tossed at him, being the sole genin on his team able to use Fuinjutsu. After all, Shibuki was just a long scroll with explosive tags, and Jinpachi had instructed him to try to increase the versatility of Shibuki with his intelligence. Learning Fuinjutsu was the first step. The team of 3 began assembling the tent, pitching the upper end of the shelter so that it covered the sleeping chambers. Slowly but surely, the tent transformed into a triangular shape, with chambers for each individual member to sleep in. Take a rest. Kisame assured his team, you guys need it. All 3 members crawled into their sleeping bags, Shikamaru the most enthusiastic about it. After all, his dream life consisted of shogi, sleep, and watching clouds. Before long, all 3 of them were fast asleep. Checking once again on his team, Kisame walked over to a nearby clearing, meeting an unknown figure. He remembered that chakra's signature, and had sensed it since he entered the area. So, we meet again. Kisame began the conversation. Again, I don't want to be part of the plan of yours. Kisame, what a pleasure to meet you again. The dark-cloaked figure replied. Are you still considering that offer? Not like I am here to attack you or your little genin. No, I already have my loyalties. Konan. Birds chirped across the sky, flapping their wings and soaring high above the clouds. Naruto awakened to the calling of Kisame, who had woken up much earlier than him. The Kirigakure Jonin had already hunted a wild ox and scorched it with his fire release, a huge breakfast for the group. The team gulped down the morning meal, a bit extreme for a breakfast, if Naruto said so himself. Still, it was better than nothing, and Naruto wanted to conserve the 1 pack of instant ramen for the return home. Finishing the remnants of the meat, Naruto and his squad unpacked the tent, Kisame resealing the components into the scroll. The quick speed of the team meant that it took absolutely no time to get ready to continue on their trip to Kusagakure. The stone and dirt path towards the hidden grass village was mostly straight, somewhat curved. All 4 of them had their destination in mind, even though none of them could see the end of the road. The sound of sandals hitting the road rung in the ears of the animals that could hear higher frequencies of sound, the shinobi trotting along the road to the grass village. The trip was rather uneventful, Nothing noteworthy happening. It was mostly walking, with the occasional 3 to 4 sentence conversation occasionally sprinkled in. Tall gates with walls built around them marked the entrance to the hidden grass village. The gate guards sat on their foldable chairs, standing up with their nunchucks in hand at the sight of intruders. Stop. State your purpose. We are here on behalf of the 5th Mizukage, Mei Terumi, to deliver a message to the leader of Kusagakure. Kisame informed the gate guards. Just the sheer sight of the strongest 7 swordsmen ever made the teeth of the gate guard shudder. The shark man showed the guards the scroll. Follow me to the office of the village leader. The gate guard instructed, the gates opening. Team 12 entered the village, following the gate guard into the village. The huge bridges, towers, buildings towered over the team, as they entered the main tower, where the leader was residing. The 4 Kirigakure ninja entered the office of the Kusagakure leader, paperwork littering the man's table. Welcome to Kusagakure, Kirigakure messengers. The man asked, his long black hair flowing down to his shoulders. Now, what reply has Mei Terumi given me?